Hey everyone, Alex here. I want to talk about fragrance addiction. This has been something that over the last 7 years has gotten more and more of a concern for me, and I know that a lot of other people here on YouTube and on TikTok and just in the fragrance community in general do have a problem with, and there's not enough people talking about it, although there are people that are starting to talk about it more, which I think is positive, but it's also a shame that something that starts out as a hobby for a lot of people becomes a full-blown addiction. And that has been the case for me, and that's why I wanted to get on here and talk about kind of what led me to realize that this was more than a hobby and what I'm doing about it as well, and also how you, if you're struggling with the same thing, can stop and or manage your fragrance addiction as well. So just to start with, I think a lot of people don't realize just quite how expensive a lot of fragrances can be for just kind of the general everyday population. A lot of people have got, one or two fragrances, usually one fragrance that they wear, and they get a bottle at Christmas or two bottles at Christmas or a birthday, and that's just what they wear throughout the year, and they don't put any thought into the event that they're going to, the style of clothing that they're wearing, the temperature, or anything like that. They don't consider the sillage or the performance of the fragrance or the anything, the longevity. It's just, I like the way this smells, I'm going to spray it on, and that's just what I wear every time I wear perfume. And it may or may not be every day, it may just be for special occasions, but most people don't have a full-blown collection of fragrances. On the other hand, certain people, like myself, spend a lot of money on fragrances, and some of them, I think a lot of people don't even realize quite how expensive they are. So just for these 3 bottles here, we've got Gris Chanel Extrait by BDK Parfums, Naxos by Xerjoff, and Tony Iommi Monkey Special by Xerjoff. This is about $1,500 or about $1,200 Australian dollars, about $1,200 for these 3 bottles alone. Now, I've got 17 bottles here with me at the moment for the sake of this video, but my collection at the moment is about 42 fragrances, and I've been downsizing. I've cut over half of my collection since the start of the year. So I had about 100 bottles at the start of 2024, end of 2023, and slowly but surely I've been either giving bottles to my friends and family. I haven't sold bottles. I wouldn't buy somebody else's used bottle, so I don't know. You don't really know what's in there, so I'd rather just give mine to other people. I don't feel right selling bottles. I know that there's a market for them, but I wouldn't do it, so I'm not going to sell them myself. But anyway, that was $1,200 just in 3 bottles, and I've got another 14 bottles here for the sake of this video to show you, and another, 20 something bottles over where I keep the rest of my collection. And I want to get this down ideally to about, I think 15 to 17 bottles is that's my happy point, because any more than that, and it's just overwhelming, and I'm going to talk about that a lot in a moment too, but any less than that, and I feel like I'm going to feel more of a drive to still want more fragrances. So I think kind of 15 to 17, if I can cut the ones that aren't absolute 10 out of 10 every time I spray them, I love wearing them. If it's not an absolute love, it doesn't need to be in my collection. Okay, this is going to bring me to my first point. So my first point is fragrances are really expensive, and a lot of the time we buy them simply because we like the opening. We don't actually test them out long term. We don't really give ourselves time to wear them in different scenarios and in different temperatures to figure out if we actually like them. Case in point for me, Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille and Tuscan Leather. I have used, and you're not going to be able to see this, but I've used about maybe 10 sprays from Tobacco Vanille and even fewer from Tuscan Leather, and I've had both of these for over 2 years. And I spent a lot of money on them too. This is around about $500 here, and I think now it's even more than that because fragrance prices are increasing stupidly. They're just becoming ridiculously expensive. But these 2 here from the Private Blends collection from Tom Ford, very expensive, and I really liked them upon the opening spray. When I first sprayed them, they smelt nice, and I went, yep, that's great. I would love to smell like that, and I just pulled the trigger. I didn't allow the fragrances to develop or dry down. I didn't allow myself to actually try them in different contexts and different situations and different temperatures. And as a result, I've realized that both of them are too difficult to wear. And I've spent, $500 on just those two little bottles, and I basically don't wear them. In fact, my partner doesn't even like either of them. So when am I going to wear them? And that is the case for a lot of fragrances. So another example of that, Chanel Sycamore. I believe, I can't remember the exact numbers, but this is more than $300. And keep in mind, I'm speaking in Australian dollars. This is more than $300 for 75 mil. I've used this much in 2 years. Now, this was a fragrance that I bought because a YouTuber, I'm not going to name names, but a YouTuber that I watch, she absolutely hyped the shit out of it. She said it was just one of the most amazing fragrances ever. It was masculine, it was sensual, it was sexy, it was elegant, and it is, but that doesn't mean that it's right for me. But I went to Chanel and I tried it, and I actually really did quite enjoy it. But for whatever reason, once I bought the bottle, it just wasn't the same. So when I over the years sprayed it in store, every time I'd gone into a Chanel boutique, I would spray it and I would just fall in love with it. But it was expensive, so I never pulled the trigger. And eventually, my business started doing well, and I went, great, I have all this money that I can go and spend on more fragrances. And I went and just bought stuff without really actually considering if it suits me or if I really genuinely wanted it. So I bought Sycamore and realized it's really not my thing. Like, I like it, but I don't love it. And I don't love it enough to where if I ran out of the bottle, I would go and drop another $300+ on it. So I feel like it's a really good thing to consider if, when buying a fragrance, if this bottle runs out, would I go and buy another bottle of it? If not, you probably don't love it enough to have it in your collection. Now, there is an exception to that, and that is if you just feel like treating yourself once in a while. I don't mean every time you go and buy a fragrance. I mean genuinely once in a while, maybe once a year. You go, this is a real stretch. This is a really expensive fragrance, and I just would love to own it just once. Fine, that's fair enough. But if you're buying stuff because you just kind of like it and it's expensive, and you do that all the time, you're wasting your money. Like it should really be a love if you're gonna put it in your collection, because there are so many fragrances out there. You're gonna like thousands of different types of fragrances, and you can't buy all of them. And you can try, but you're just gonna run out of money at some point. So I feel like for me, it only makes sense to put something into my collection now if I genuinely love it and I've tested it and I know that I love it, and it's more than just a, wow, yeah, that smells good, or even if it's, wow, that's really nice. So are all of the other fragrances in your collection. You don't need it just because it's really nice. If you absolutely love it and you can't live without it, fine, add it to your collection. But actually think a little bit more about it before just pulling the trigger just because it's nice. Okay, a couple of other things. Molecule 02, Molecule 01 by Eccentric Molecules. I bought these purely because they were being hyped up online, because everyone said, wow, they're so amazing. I get so many compliments from them, and you can layer them with kind of lesser performing fragrances, and it will just really amplify them. It'll make them last longer, it'll make them stronger. And to a degree it does, but not a hugely noticeable difference. And for the price that I paid, I don't remember exactly. I think they were about $180 to $200 each. And the thing with these is they only have one molecule, one note in them. Molecule 01 has ISO-E Super. It's just like, kind of smells a little bit woody. That's about it. And Molecule 02 has ambroxan or ambroxide, which is like a little bit kind of salty and ambery a little bit, and minerally. They have one note in them, and they're not very strong. So when you're paying that much for basically just slightly scented liquid, you got to really start thinking about, is this actually something that I need? Because it's so easy to buy into the hype and spend way more than you want to spend simply because you want to believe what it is that everybody's saying online. Everybody thinks, for example, Grand Soir by MFK. This is like renowned as like one of the greatest fragrances of all time at the moment. And I like it, but I don't love it. And I've used an okay amount, but I've had this for about 2 years as well. And every time I spray it, I just think it's okay. It's nice, but it's okay. It's not, the greatest thing that I've ever smelled. And it was expensive too. This is like, I want to say almost $400. I don't know why I'm spending $400 almost to wear something that other people think is nice, but I think is just kind of okay. So, yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing, and I'm just going to periodically bring fragrances up because I've got them here for the video. The second thing is it's really overwhelming to have a huge collection and then try and decide what you're going to wear each day, because you analyze what you're going to wear more than anybody else even thinks to consider. So like, say for example, you're going to the shops, just going to go get some groceries. The everyday person probably doesn't spray anything to go. If they're not already wearing something, they're not going to go out of their way to go to where their fragrances are, spray it on themselves, and then go to the shops. They just go. But for people that are really into fragrances, especially the ones that are like full-blown addicted to it, like myself, it's a real struggle to actually think and analyze, what am I wearing? What's the temperature going to be? What vibe do I want to convey? What do I want to smell like? And it's just too much. It takes up too much mental space to have to consider all of these different factors just to decide what I'm going to wear to go to the shops. And the likelihood of someone smelling me is minimal anyway, because these days I don't really spray a whole lot. So what's the point? Just go to the shops. It takes up too much of my life. It takes up too much of my mental space. It takes up too much of my time, and it even stresses me out having to. I'll spend 5 to 10 minutes sometimes before an event just deciding which fragrance I'm going to wear. I wish that I could just grab one, spray it on, and be content, but I'm not, because I have so many, and I don't want to feel like I'm missing the perfect opportunity to wear this fragrance in its ideal setting, which is ridiculous because it's just scented liquid. So it is overwhelming. Let's say for example, I'm going to a nighttime event and it's a bit upscale, and it's at some, I don't know, fancy rooftop bar or something, and there's going to be some some kind of higher profile people there. I do a lot of networking in my business. I'm around a lot of business owners and CEOs, and quite wealthy people. And I also, when I'm around those people, I want to be taken seriously by them, obviously. So I like to really put my best foot forward. So if I'm going to an event like that, there are just here of the 17 fragrances I've got here, there are a whole bunch that would perfectly fit that category. So I could wear Orchid Leather by Van Cleef & Arpels, Boozy, Deep, Rich, Opulent Plum. I could wear Naxos by Xerjoff. This is like honey, tobacco, lavender, absolutely beautiful. I could wear Tony Iommi Monkey Special by Xerjoff. This is a boozy passion fruit and rum and patchouli, beautiful. I could wear Black Orchid by Tom Ford. It's just like woody, almost a little bit chocolatey, floral, dark, opulent. The point is, they all fit the category, they all fit the scene, they all fit the vibe. Why am I having to decide between 10 different fragrances that would all suit that night perfectly? But that's the thought process that I go behind. I'm like, okay, who am I going to be around? What am I wearing? What's the temperature? What's the setting? What vibe do I want to convey? What does it say about me? That's just too much thought that I don't really need to be. I don't need to be using my brain that much. I would like to just be able to pick something up and go, yep, you know what? I just feel like wearing Grey Vetiver by Tom Ford tonight because it just smells good and I like it. And I do, I love it. I wear it a lot. But I don't do that. Instead, I have to just perfectly get that ideal fragrance for that scenario. And that's just ridiculous. And I know that I'm not the only person that does that, because I have other friends who are really into fragrances who do the exact same thing. And it's a waste of time and it's unnecessary and it actually doesn't mean anything. The fragrance you wear doesn't mean anything at all. And it might make you feel more confident, and that's great, but it doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't make you a more sophisticated person just because you know a little bit more about fragrances than somebody else and you are more selective in choosing which fragrance to wear. It doesn't make you more sophisticated. It doesn't make you better. It doesn't make you smarter or more stylish. It just means that you care about it more than other people do. And that can be a good or bad thing depending on who you are. So anyway, I just think it's ridiculous how much time, effort, money, and attention goes into fragrances. And it's not just fragrances, there's plenty of other things that I think are a waste of time as well. But slowly but surely, I've realized how much of a problem this is. And it really becomes a problem, not just when you're spending a lot of money, not just when you have to decide, you spend too much time deciding what to wear, but also when you start buying stuff just purely based on other people's recommendations or their reviews, and you haven't even smelled the fragrance before. And this is kind of the tipping point for me. This is where I went, you know what, something needs to change here. I started buying stuff without even smelling or trying it out. I had no idea what it smelled like. I just purely went off people's reviews. Like, you know, there are YouTubers and TikTokers and people on Fragrantica and people on Sniff or Reddit who, you know, will talk about a fragrance, and I'm like, yep, that sounds amazing. I'm just gonna go and buy it. I'm gonna pull the trigger. That sounds like me. And then you get it and you're like, this is not that good. But you convince yourself that you try to convince yourself anyway that it's good, that it just needs some time to warm up, or I need to macerate it or whatever. But really, you know, this was a mistake. I wasted my money. I'm never gonna wear this. What do I do now? Blind buying. It's so ridiculous. If you're going to go and spend anything more than, say, $30 on a fragrance, try it out. I understand blind buying if you go into the store and there's a chain of chemists or of pharmacies here in Australia called Chemist Warehouse. And for most of the fragrances, they've got like a bottle that you can, well, they will spray it for you so that at least you can try it out to start with. But for a lot of their more expensive fragrances, they actually don't have tester bottles at all. So if you're going to go and spend $300-400, like they've got a lot of Tom Fords in the one that I go to, and they've got some Creed, and they've got some Memo and Amouage as well, and Byredo too. None of them have testers. So if I'm going to go buy any of them, I just need to pull the trigger. And I started doing that, and when I started doing that, I realized how stupid it was, and that was what made me go, this is ridiculous. I care way too much about fragrances and not nearly enough about saving my money. And yeah, it became a real problem for me. So anyway, what am I going to do about it, and what can you do about it? So the first thing that I'm doing about it is I've actually allowed myself to stop. Like, I've told myself, you don't need more fragrances. You've already got 40 odd fragrances. I had 100, I've downsized them, and I'm going to talk about how to do that too. Just stop and actually allow yourself to stop and breathe and realize that every single thing that you want out of a fragrance, if you've got more than, say, 10 fragrances, you've already got everything you could possibly need for every single scenario. Unless you, for whatever reason, have just bought like 10 of the same type of fragrance. I doubt that would be the case. For most people, you've tried to build out a well-rounded collection. If you have more than 10, you've already got enough. You've already got something for every situation. You don't need any more. And you're not going to get any more joy out of it, because eventually you go and buy a new fragrance, but in a month's time, the joy and that honeymoon phase is going to, it's going to disappear, and it's just going to be another fragrance in your collection. And then you're going to want that next hit again, and you're going to continue the process. So you need to recognize that you've got a problem. If you have a problem, if you don't feel like you've got a problem and you're fine with it, cool. But if you struggle with your fragrance collection and you know that there's a problem and you have this uneasy feeling like I had, just allow yourself to stop for a second and genuinely consider the fact that you've already got everything that you want and need. You've already got it all. So for me, my first step was acknowledging the fact that I had a problem that I didn't need anymore. The second thing I did was I went and I got a little fragrance, a little fragrance tray. I don't think it was specifically for fragrances, but just a little tray that could only fit about 8 fragrances on it. And I put that on my vanity where I keep my fragrances. It's not, my vanity's not in the bathroom. It's in like a separate part of the bathroom that it doesn't have windows, so it's not being damaged by the sun or anything or humidity. But I put the tray on the vanity and I chose my 8 or 9 absolute favorite 10 out of 10 fragrances. I put them on the tray and the rest I put in a cupboard. And I let myself just sit with those fragrances for a week. And I immediately noticed how much easier things were for me mentally without having to consider all of these different things. I just grabbed one of the fragrances because I loved all of them, grabbed one, sprayed it on, and was happy. Put it back on the tray and went about my business, went about my day. And what was interesting is I found that over time, I actually forgot which fragrances I had in my cupboard. And then after about 2-3 weeks, I went, you know what, let's try and swap some out. So I took out my fragrances, I picked out another 8 or 9, put those on the tray and put everything else back in the cupboard. And it was like getting a whole new fragrance rotation. It was almost as if I'd gotten all of those fragrances for the first time again, because I hadn't worn them, I hadn't been seeing them, and out of sight, out of mind. And this was awesome for me. It allowed me to curate small collections depending on the mood, depending on the season, depending on the vibe that I wanted to convey at that point in time. And it was awesome. It felt like a new me. And it took away the overwhelm of having to look at 40 bottles of fragrance at a time and decide what the hell I'm going to wear that day. So my first thing that I would recommend is just curate a small collection, put everything else away and allow yourself to sit with those fragrances and really enjoy them for what they are. You bought them for a reason, so get to know them. Actually just build a small collection out of your wider collection and really sit with them for a while. Next, go through, and there are going to be a few fragrances that you've almost never used that you've had for a while. You're not going to wear them. Just get rid of them. Just get rid of them. Give them to somebody else. Sell them if you have to, but just get rid of them. Allow yourself to recognize, okay, I've already spent the money. Me keeping the bottle is not going to bring the money back. So whether you get rid of it, whether you keep it, you're not using it anyway. You've already spent the money. Just get rid of it. And I'd say that you could at least cut your fragrance collection down by about 10%, if not more, just by getting real with yourself and throwing out or selling the bottles that you know that you're not going to use. The ones that you look at and you've had around for ages and you look at them all the time, but you just go, I don't wear it. Recognize that, accept it, and get rid of them. Next, go through your collection one by one, pick up every single bottle, sit with them for a couple of minutes, each bottle, even if it takes you a few hours, sit with each bottle and be real about how you feel about it. Forget about the money that you spent on it. Doesn't matter if it's expensive or cheap. Sit with it, and if you'll know the feeling. You'll go, I have to have this in my collection. I love it. I adore it. I can't live without it. Put that on one side. Then you pick up another one and you'll go, oh, I like this one. It was expensive, but I don't really wear it. Put it on the other side. Filter them out like that. Sorry, I just sneezed. I'm getting better. I had a cold for the last couple of weeks. Last couple of days, over the last week. Anyway, filter your fragrances like that. Pick them up one by one and just sit with them for a little bit and go, I love this. I can't live without it. Put it on one side. This one, I like it. I might even love it, but I know that I can live without it. Put that on the other side. And then you get another one and you go, I just don't really like it, and get rid of it. And then slowly but surely, as you work through your collection, you'll start to curate a collection of absolute loves that you can't live without. You'll get some that you like, that you're kind of unsure of, that you probably wouldn't rebuy again, but you've got them. And for the moment you like them, you're going to keep them. And then you've got some that you absolutely you're like, I know that I can live without it. I don't need it. All of the ones that you know that you can live without, start getting rid of them. Start giving them away. Your friends and family will appreciate them. Start giving them away. Start selling them. Start doing whatever you have to do. Throw them out if you have to. I don't condone wastage, but just get rid of them however you have to. For the ones that you like but you're kind of unsure about, put those away for now. And the ones that are absolute loves that you genuinely can't live without, not the ones you're just telling yourself you can't live without, the ones that you actually go, I love these so much that I would be genuinely upset if I wasn't able to wear this again. That is your fragrance collection. That should be how you feel about every single fragrance in your collection. And anything that doesn't fit that criteria, you don't need. So that's the collection that you should start working through. And what you'll find is that every day you'll pick up one of the fragrances and you'll be excited to wear it no matter what it is. You'll spray it on and you'll feel amazing. You'll feel 10 out of 10 because it's one of your favorite fragrances. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel confident. It makes you feel special. You feel refined. You feel elegant, sophisticated, and you know that you're wearing an absolute banger. That is how you should feel about your whole collection. Then what you can do is you can do what I said before. You can get a small tray and of that collection of 10 out of 10s, put some fragrances on there and then put the rest away. And then over time, every week or every 2 weeks or every month or season, however long you want to go between doing this, rotate them. Allow yourself to create a fragrance rotation out of the fragrances that you love. And what that's going to do is that feeling of getting a new fragrance, you're going to get that every time you rotate the fragrances. So you don't need to go and buy a new fragrance. You just get to replace the fragrances that are in your current rotation with other ones that you have that are already tried and tested that you already love. That's what I've been doing, and that is how I've been managing to get rid of over half of my collection and feel re-excited and re-energized about my current collection. So I don't feel the need to go and buy new fragrances. And that is how I've been able to stay on top of my addiction, because if I didn't, I would have just kept spending and spending and spending and spending, buying more and more expensive fragrances, and really not being any happier. So I recommend trying the same thing. That really helped me because I was getting to a point where I was spending way too much money on fragrances and too much mental space and effort too. And it is exhausting. I know that from first-hand experience. So if you're going through the same thing, try what I've done. It really helped. It was awesome for me, and I think it'll be awesome for you too. So good luck. You don't need that next fragrance. I don't care what the influencers are saying. They just want you to buy it so they can make money. Half the time they don't even wear it or like it. So just stick with what you love. If you absolutely must buy a new fragrance, allow yourself to test it out. Just don't blind buy. Actually allow yourself to test it out. Wear it more than once in different scenarios before pulling the trigger, especially if it's over $100. It's crazy to be taking a chance on something that expensive. Like, everyone is struggling financially for the most part, other than a few lucky people. Pretty much everyone, could use more money. So don't spend your money on stuff that you don't even absolutely love. That's all I have to say. Stay on top of your fragrance addiction if you've got one. If you don't have one, but you're getting there, also do the same thing, because it's not something you want to get stuck in the grips of. It's far too easy to spend your money and then 2-3 years down the line go, shit, I could have used that for so many other things. So anyway, that's all I have to say. I hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll speak soon.